Hi, gang. It's Patrick.
And Ryan.
Coming up on today's episode, we fly way back into the vault with a review of 1941's Dumbo. As always, we discuss the latest Disney news, and we close out the show with some quick D. All that and more on today's episode of Gays Do the D.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Ryan Lucky Feather Tucker.
Patrick, my personal Timothy Mouse cosplay.
What do you think the Q stands for? Did they ever say what the Q stands for? Timothy Q Mouse?
Oh, I don't know, but it's probably something prestigious like Quincy or like that's the only that's the only Q name that I know.
I know. I'm trying to think of Q words, and I'm like, is the word cute starting with a Q? No, that's not right.
You can.
QWET.
Or maybe it stands for queer-coded.
There it is. Timothy Queer-Coded Mouse.
Timothy Queer-Coded Mouse.
I'm obsessed with that.
And I do feel like a lot of the characters in Dumbo are queer-coded.
I mean, a lot of the characters in like all of the the classic Disney movies, I feel like are real gay, real soft gays. They're serving soft homosexuality.
That is, I love that. I want to change my Instagram name to that, soft homosexuality.
Soft. I'm a soft homosexual.
I'm just a soft homosexual.
I'm obsessed with that. Yeah. Ryan, my friend, however, I feel like we haven't recorded together in years. It feels like that.
Yeah, we haven't. We have not recorded in a substantial amount of gay years. 100%. I'm doing pretty good. I feel like this change of seasons has been so nice. And somehow I've fallen into astrology TikTok, so I know about all of the eclipses that are happening and how it's supposed to bring about new energy, allegedly. And You know what? I feel it. I'm feeling it. What about you, Patrick? How are you?
I'm obsessed with that. I'm good. It's been a real busy fall for me so far. I directed a show here in the Twin Cities, and it opened yesterday, actually, as of this recording. So now I feel like I can breathe again. So I'm doing well though. Things are good. I love the fall. It's my favorite time of year. You know?
Come on, directing. Come on. It's giving Christopher Nolan. It's giving Steven Spielberg. It's giving Jordan Peele.
Oh, I'll take that one. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely.
Obsessed.
Actually, speaking of Jordan Peele, I watched Get Out about 2 days ago, and I hadn't seen it in a few years. In that movie, if y'all are looking for some spooks and also some education about racial discrimination, I highly recommend Get Out. It's such a good movie.
It's so good.
That's Jordan Peele's first blockbuster. Insane.
Yeah, it's like, setting aside the fact that it's technically horror genre, it's just a superior movie. It's just so good.
It's just so well done. But I guess we should talk about Disney, yeah?
Why not? We started out strong, talking about Dumbo a little bit, and then we just shifted to something else. We saw something shiny and went that way.
Actually, I'm going to actually put a hold on us talking about Disney before we jump into it.
Yeah.
There's some things that we have to announce, of course.
We have a lot to talk about, actually, that are not necessarily Disney related. You're right. Where should we start? How do we get into this?
Well, I would love to start with the fact that this week, as we speak, it is our favorite Tennessean's birthday. And no, we're not talking about Dolly Parton. We are talking about an even greater Tennessean.
Oh my
Yes,
stars.
our co-host, Mr. JT Landry. It's his birthday.
It's true.
Happy birthday, JT. We hope that you have the best day.
I know, it's true. Everyone, if you are following JT on Instagram, blow up his DMs with birthday well wishes or send them our way to GDTD, and we will send those on to JT. I love birthday. I love when you all have birthdays. It's the best. I love celebrating
everybody. It is the best because it means that we're still living.
It's true.
We're still going.
What a blessing. What a blessing. Well, happy birthday, JT. We love you so much. Okay, well, now that we've celebrated JT's birthday, we're gonna turn the tone down just a little bit, Ryan. There's never a good way to get into things like this, but we felt like we had to address this because I'm sure that we have many listeners who are of the Jewish faith, and we wanted to just send our thoughts your way. I know that is such a little thing to say, sending your thoughts and prayers, but really and truly, we're of course talking about the recent attacks on Israel and just the horrific events that are happening right now. I'm sure all of us knows someone who has been affected by this firsthand or secondhand, very, very closely related to this. And so, it's horrific, and we are in a really tumultuous we're always in a tumultuous time, but it's tough to hear these things. It's tough to see these things. But we are sending you all love, and reach out to someone if you need to talk to someone. Mental health is real, especially when things like this are occurring in the world. It's devastating, and we love all of you, so send love to a loved one today. Think of your friends, think of your neighbors, and just be one with each other. We all need it right now,
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Patrick. I think it's super important to always think about the fact that allyship is never implied. It should always be explicitly stated. For our Tweedles and our community who have been affected by recent current events, we just want you to know that we are here for you every step of the way in whatever way we can support. You have community, you are seen, and in this space you are safe. So please feel free to let us know what we can do for you.
That part right there, Ryan. Thank you for saying that. All right. Again, how do you move on from topics like this? I guess, you know what? Here's how we move on. We move on to celebrating all of our Tweedles in our I'm Celebrating section. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Get us into it, Ryan.
Okay, at Andy Heath Puppeteer, booking yet another trip, this time Disneyland OG just after Christmas. Andy, what a dreamy time to be in California.
Ugh, I love it. I love it. I've never seen Disneyland during the holidays. I bet it's beautiful. I should get out there for that.
I have not been to Disneyland during like the holiday season per se, but I have been at Disneyland around the time of Halloween, and it is dreamy. Like,
it's spectacular. Yeah.
I can't view Halloween at Disney World the same way, honestly. Like, it's so pretty.
I totally agree. Disney World does a good job, but Disneyland crushes it for Halloween. Yeah. It's just the best. Absolutely the best.
Also, Andy was here in Orlando a couple weeks ago, and we were ships passing in the night. Like, we barely missed each other several times trying to meet up, but it never worked out. So hopefully, Andy, I'm manifesting in the next 2 fiscal quarters or so that you and I are going to meet in person.
Yes, I see that happening. He is just the sweetest in the world, so we hope to meet you sometime very soon. All right, let's see. Moving on, we have at ADV Parker saying, surviving my first weeks of teaching biology labs and my fiance getting into law school. Come on, smartness.
Okay,
I see you.
This is a power couple.
I'm interested in the dinner conversations, biology and law.
It's giving academia.
I'm serving law school realness. I'm serving Elle Woods. Interested.
I'm serving biology. It's giving that scene in Twilight when they're in biology labs and she walks by the fan.
Yes, very that. Also, have you ever seen Grease 2?
I've seen like 15 minutes of Grease 2.
That's all you really need to see. But there's a whole song about biology and a sex education class. But yeah, worth a look. Worth
a quick gaze.
Absolutely.
All right, at Sean Cruz, booking my weekly therapy sessions for the next few months because mental health is important. Sean, you're just such a good person.
And a smart one.
And a smart one. It's so true, fellow Tweedles. As we all know, the holiday season and coming towards the end of the year may bring about a lot of pressure, may bring about some unwanted familiar interactions. And also the sun goes down earlier. Book a therapy session.
Book a therapy session. Start popping that vitamin D.
Yes.
It's needed.
Yes.
It is needed.
Speaking of, actually, this is not an ad, but I just downloaded Balance, and it's a meditation app in the App Store, and your first year is free. So,
that's good to know.
If you're looking for a meditation app that like really breaks it down for beginners, highly recommend. Go check it out.
Good to know. I am not good at meditating, but I know that when I do it, I feel a lot better for the day, but I don't know. I strangely don't have the patience for meditation, but I know I need to get into it more.
I'm getting there. I completely agree. Like halfway through any type of meditation session, I'm always like, what's for dinner? I hope Britney Spears is okay. Who is going to win the next Super Bowl when it comes to pop divas and not football teams? Like that's like my usual stream of consciousness, but I'm learning that during meditation, it's natural for your brain to wander. So that is okay. And you need to accept it. But anyways, that was an aside.
It's true. It's very, very true.
DVC.
I loved it. Obsessed.
Yes. You go, Sean. DVC 5571. I had to buy new pants because I've lost 55 pounds. That's amazing.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah,
I want to know that journey because, you know, I'm always on like a weight loss, weight gain journey. So tell us your story. I want to know about it.
That is amazing. Congratulations to you. I hope that all of your new outfits and just like this new era for you brings about some exciting change.
Yes, absolutely. Congratulations. Moving on, we have at Kenny.cafe, who says 9 years since opening my cafe in Austin. Ooh, congratulations. What's it called? I need to know what the cafe is called and what are you serving?
And you know what? Shout out to Kenny because Austin is a vibe. So for you to have a cafe in Austin, Kenny has to serve. Kenny's
you better.
Been serving for 9 years. Literally.
Kenny already had his for 9 years.
Additionally serving. So way to go, Kenny.
You better work.
At Steve Achu, Dad's 60th birthday, best friend's
30th, sorry.
30th birthday. Oh, I thought that they were hiding their age. There was a typo.
My bad. 30th birthday.
I thought they were like best friend's 30th birthday.
3-something birthday.
And a potential new job at Disney and Halloween. Steve Achu, this is your season. We're getting the jobs. We're doing the spooks. And congratulations to all of the people in your life. That's so exciting.
Absolutely. And slip into our DMs and let us know what you might be doing at Disney. We promise not to tell everyone unless we do. We might slip it. Who can say? Who
is to say? Oops.
We have loose lips over here at Case to the T.
And they be sinking ships.
They do sink some ships. Well, congratulations, everybody. Thank you for sending us your celebrations. We love to hear it and to see it. What are you celebrating, Ryan?
I am celebrating... That's a great question.
Thank you.
You know, I am celebrating the stillness of life right now. I'm going on bike rides. I am strategically blocking out my social calendar for time with myself.
I love that.
And it's been really nice. What are you celebrating?
Good for you. I'm celebrating that, first of all. What am I celebrating? I'm celebrating the season. I like I said it already. Like the fall season is just, I feel like it's I don't know how to explain it. Like spring is like rebirth, but like fall is like settling in to life.
What a metaphor.
Oh, thank you.
Wow. It's giving Mother starring Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah,
I'll take that compliment.
Deep. You know what Jennifer Lawrence meme I've been quoting it nonstop recently is when she's on that Hot Wings show.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That, like she still has hotter wings to eat. And she's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I've been quoting that nonstop.
Do you mean? That is such a good show. I'm obsessed with it. Yeah. Hot Ones, if everyone doesn't know what we're talking about. Okay, you know what else I'm celebrating, Ryan?
What are you celebrating?
I'm celebrating our 5-year 5K medal sales because we have sold, I think, about 30 medals so far. All of that proceeds are going to the Trevor Project. So thank you, everybody who has signed up for our 5-year 5K. We are still, I think, like 70 left. So we have 60 because we We had some set aside for ourselves as well. Anyways, point being, we have medals left. This is going through the end of the year. We're celebrating our 5-year all year long. So head on over to gazetothed.com and click on the 5K tab where you'll learn all about our virtual 5K, and all of the proceeds from said 5-year 5K medals are going directly to the Trevor Project.
We love to see it. And also
We do.
The Trevor Project, what a great organization. So even if you hate
the best.
running, let
know.
that be your motivation.
Let that be your motivation. And these medals are poppin'. They are really beautiful, if I do say so myself. And it's the only year you're going to have this specific design because it is a celebration of our 5-year anniversary.
So next year with the 6K, I don't even know what a 6K is.
Math is not my forte.
Right.
So it's like 3.8 or 4. I don't know how many miles it is, but
know.
6. No, we're not even going to try. So yes, head on over to gazetothed.com and click on the 5K tab and sign up for our 5K, y'all. You don't even have to do it. Just get the medal and donate to the Trevor Project. That's all you need to do. And we love you for it.
We love you for it.
All right, let's move on, Ryan, to some listener feedback. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it. Oh, and this is about the spooks.
It is. It is about the spooks.
I can't wait to hear people's reactions.
Well, you don't have to wait because I'm going to get into it right now. Are you ready?
Oh, boy.
We have at Jedi Trousers. So this, as you said, is in response to our list of Fab 5 Disney spooks, saying, I let a friend convince me to go on Tower of Terror once, and it was traumatic. I had to go get something to eat and just sit quietly for an hour after that experience. Another major Disney scare I think deserves a shout out are the Mickey and Minnie character costumes from the early days of Disneyland. Completely horrifying. And then he says, in response to Kale bringing up the movie Holes, also speaking of holes, the pirate cave in The Rescuers absolutely terrified me as a kid. Same Jedi
The
Trousers.
pirate cave is so scary.
Yes.
This is such a funny reaction because Tower of Terror, I feel like, is a traumatic experience for most people. Like
Yes.
of a certain age where it's like you remember your first time getting on Tower of Terror and you're like,
Right.
oh, look at that little girl and her grandma. And they're like, oh,
Yeah.
they died.
Yep. Oh, they died.
I love Tower of Terror, though. I have a Tower of Terror
Yeah.
tattoo. And these are such good spooks.
Yes.
Also, yes, Holes is a terrifying movie. That scene with Madame Zeroni just like laughing deadpan at the camera. So scary.
I need to watch it again. Maybe we need to watch that for our next watch party.
Oh, include me. That should be a Coven episode for sure.
I love it. Obsess.
At ADV Parker, this episode was so spooky and fun. My scariest Disney moment was my first time riding Dinosaur. Oh boy. I was 8 years old at the time and the little nerdy gay in me was eager to take a blast to the past. However, I was not ready for the ferocity of the Carnotaurus, as the most imposing beast loomed over us like a Jurassic Regina George. My grandma pointed at it and said, Parker, look. I immediately yanked her arm down out of fear that the Carno was going to lunge forward and chop her arm off. Thankfully, the horror of a dinosaur snacking on my grandmother did not deter me from enjoying subsequent rides and eventually became one of my all-time favorite Disney attractions.
Aww.
Oh, that's so good. And also, just pause right there. Hilarious.
Yes.
I also love dinosaurs so much so that I have a Monstera in my room and its name is Felicia Rashad. So
Yes.
right there with you, Parker. And, that's not our dino. Anyhow, so Parker continues and says, now for films, I'd like to nominate the 1996 Nightmare known as James and the Giant Peach. Parker. You are so correct in this. Most of the scenes are an acid trip in their own right, but the rhino had me shook. He was just so intimidating and his eyes radiated pure malice. Yes, and he was steampunk too. It was weird. The scene
weird.
with the mechanical pirates in the Arctic was also quite gnarly. I completely agree with this. James and the Giant Peach is a terrifying movie. One last thing, I haven't wished you a happy 5-year anniversary yet, so happy 5 years. Always love what you do here on the pod. I'm excited to join the virtual 5K, and to Kale, I would like to officially apologize for posing the quick D question that led you to your designation as the Bully Butcherson of the group. It's very accurate, though, so maybe I'm not sorry after all. Oh man, I love that will never die. Kale is Billy Butcherson, no. But it's just so true.
Very. It is. You can't deny it. You can't deny it.
I think that this is my favorite listener feedback that we've ever gotten on the show.
I totally forget about James the Giant Peach, and maybe because it is so horrifying to look at that I just block it from my memory.
The aunties from Absolutely Fabulous, they are so scary in this movie.
Yeah, truly. Truly.
And Mrs. Spider. Okay, but Mrs. Spider, she's a serve, though, even though she's also scary.
You're not wrong. James and the Giant Peach. Okay, we have to watch that movie again as well.
We should do a take 2 of James and the Giant Peach.
I'm interested. I think you just signed yourself up for it, Ryan.
All right, I'm in. Let's do it.
Well, thank you, Jedi Trousers and ADV Parker. Keep the feedback coming. Ryan, are you ready to get learnt in This Week in Disney History?
You know what? I'm ready to get learnt like I'm teaching a biology lab and my fiance is in law school. Let's go.
Let's do this. All right. So the first one, 70 years ago, Ryan, on October 23rd, 1953, Disney's animated short Rugged Bear was released. That also sounds like a movie that's not Disney. Anyways, moving on. This short included Donald Duck and the debut of this Disney bear. Ryan, do you know which bear that is?
Is it... I can only think of Blue right now, and there's so many more Disney bears outside of that. I don't know. What's the answer?
This bear is Humphrey the bear. Humphrey the bear. So it's widely speculated that Humphrey was the bear that was the inspiration for Yogi the bear, which would debut in 1961.
I don't know Humphrey.
He's kind of just a silly, unassuming bear who messes with Donald Duck, basically, and likes to eat sandwiches.
Well, this sounds like a bear that I identify with, so I'm going to have to do some Googling afterwards.
Absolutely. We need to start a Disney bear group. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like those don't already exist, you know?
I'm sure they're out there for sure. Okay, moving on, Ryan. 41 years ago, on October 23rd, 1982, the very first Epcot Nighttime Spectacular debuted at the World Showcase. Do you happen to know what it was called?
I feel like just because of this era, I feel like the Nighttime Spectacular was called something like Elations or Let Freedom Ring or Imagination Station, something like that.
Imagination Station. It had actually a very interesting name. It was called Carnival de Lumiere. How fantastic is that?
That is not the direction that I thought we were going in.
Nope, it was, who can say? Well, the Nighttime Spectaculars at Epcot, like, no one knows what's going on there, I feel like, with what they're called and what they actually present. But it was a celebration of festivals from around the world with music, fountains, and film using rear projection screens on the barges floating in the lagoon. Now, because of these barges, it was only viewable within the World Showcase from Mexico through Canada. You could not see it as you approached the World Showcase. The show would be replaced 8 months later with a new world fantasy. 8 months later. Things just don't stay there, apparently, on the Epcot Lagoon.
Things don't, and I have a controversial but brave opinion.
Yes.
Harmonious is that girl. I will forever mourn its closing. And I know a lot of people don't like Harmonious, but let me tell you something. Harmonious was made for brown people, and I stand by that, and I will love it for forever.
I loved Harmonious as well. I did not like the barges in Harmonious, like, during the day, but I loved the show itself. I wish that they could have figured out a way to, like, just make the barges go away, like that they do for almost all of the other ones. It was weird that they were planted there.
And the people on that soundtrack put their whole foot in those runs. So good.
Yeah, so good. The best soundtrack. Is that available? Can you listen to
Yeah, it's
Harmonia
on Spotify.
somewhere? Oh, I'm going to download it immediately before it goes away.
The day they take it down, I will riot. I'll call Bob myself. I'll be like, Bob, you know what to do.
I love that. Well, that, my friend, was this week in Disney history, which means it is time to head into right now in Disney, I guess, the news.
Current Disney history.
Current Disney history.
All right, Patrick, I've got some news for you.
We love the news. What do you have for me today, Ryan?
I've got a mixture of good news, bad news, and nonchalant news about ticket pricing coming up for Disney World in 2024. But we're just going to get into it and let me know your thoughts, right?
Love it.
So starting on January 9th, 2024, guests with a Park Hopper Pass or an annual pass can Park Hop at any time throughout the day. Currently, guests can only Park Hop starting at 2 p.m. So that's a win. That's a slay. Love to see it.
Yes,
also,
same.
starting on the 9th, guests with date-based tickets, Disney Standard Ticket will no longer be required to make a theme park reservation. Annual pass holders, however, will continue to make park reservations for this foreseeable future. Okay, this is also a slay, I think. And I think having APs having to make reservations definitely makes sense just to like capture data. So
yeah,
love
I
that.
agree. Especially if you're not like staying on property, they have no idea where you're going to be. And so they just want to know how to plan ahead. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, and then with, lastly, with all of this, Disney dining plans will once again be available in 2024 as an add-on to your Disney Resort Hotel reservation. All great news. This is so exciting. We're going back to, I feel like pre-COVID times, which feels like
kind of
11 million years ago. So
it sure does. It sure does.
Very exciting. Now, with that said, all of this comes at a price, literally. Which is at part of your soul. So with all of this, it does come ticket increases across the board at both Disney World and Disneyland. So Memory Maker at Walt Disney World has increased from $169 to $185 for advance purchase and from $199 to $210 for purchase during or immediately after your vacation. So do that quick maths and work it into your budget. Water park tickets at Disney World have also increased from $74 to $79. I do wonder what they're going to do with that extra $5. I hope it's bringing Harmonious back.
I mean, it makes no sense. It's such a weird, like $5 change.
Weird.
Okay.
Parking at the Walt Disney World parks has also increased from $25 to $30 per day. Parking will still be included for guests staying at a Disney Resort hotel and for select annual pass holders. Like I said, use that $5 to bring Harmonious back. And in addition to all of that, annual passes at Walt Disney World have also increased. The Pixie Dust Pass, say that 5 times fast, flew from $3.99 to $4.39. That is an exponential increase.
Yes.
The Pirate Pass has sailed from $7.49 to $7.99. The Sorcerer Pass cast an increased spell from 969 to 999, and the Incredipass stretched from $13.99 to $14.49. That is a lot of increases.
It sure is. It sure is. I understand the need for increases, like ticket prices are going up and all this is going up, but like annual pass holders, like I feel like the more they increase, the less you get though, because you still don't have the Memory Maker included and you still don't have the water parks included like they used to be. So it doesn't, I don't know. I need more for my annual pass. Absolutely.
And also, I'm just going to confide in everyone right now. I did get the Incredipass last year because I was just like, I'm going to treat myself.
Yeah.
You know, I was going through it. I needed some Disney magic.
Yeah.
And there is no reason for it to be that expensive.
It's
and
a lot.
Quite frankly, if you live in Orlando, you do not need the Incredipass. Like you can save that money and use it at the gift shops. get one of the lower passes because it literally doesn't make sense. You don't need that much availability. So that is my 2 cents. And I hope that gives some insider help to everybody selecting what pass that they want, given all of the increases.
Makes sense. Makes sense to me.
And then very last news, when it comes to Disneyland, increases have also taken effect. The Believe Pass and the Enchant Pass have jumped by $150 each, which is a lot of money, at $12.49 and $8.49 respectively. And the Inspire Pass and the Imagine Pass have jumped by $50 each at $16.49 and $4.99 respectively. Regular day passes have jumped by as much as $65 per day, running anywhere from $104 to $194 depending on the date. Woo! That's good luck, California.
I mean, those are such huge increases to me. I don't know. It's wild. It's wild how much. I mean, we say it every time. Like, I don't know, Disney. I just feel like we just need more out of these tickets. Otherwise, I wonder what the balance is going to be of people going, I just can't go anymore because it's not worth it. If there's nothing, I mean, new attractions are opening up all the time and blah, blah, blah. But is it really worth $150 extra for those passes? I don't know.
Yeah, it's really a lot to think about. And it also puts things so much in perspective for, like, for example, my parents, right? Like, I think about how I get to go to Disney whenever I want now because I live here. But growing up, my parents used to save all year long for our Disney trip. And I was an only child at that time. And so to think about some of these parents with multiple children and, you know, on top of travel expenses always increasing outside of the Disney parks, this really is getting a bit outrageous to go on a Disney vacation.
I agree. A little sneak peek into a future episode. We're going to have Chris from Wishful Thinking on again to talk to us about what we can expect in 2024. So hopefully he can shed some light on maybe Disney is serving up some new and exciting stuff because of all these increases. But you'll have to wait and see for that episode.
Oh, I'm very excited for this. Can't wait to hear Chris's thoughts.
Same here. And I mean, that's kind of it for the news right now. How are you feeling about the increases personally? I know we just sort of talked about it a little bit, but I don't know. Is this too far, Ryan, or does it make sense to you?
You know, I will speak personally that I was supposed to renew my annual pass, and after I learned of the new prices, I did put a hold on renewing my annual pass. And I think from an AP standpoint, if you are in Orlando or in LA, I don't know. It's getting more and more difficult to justify it. But of course, you know, if you are in a state that it does require a bit of travel and a bit of like more strategic thought around it, it might be worth it. But also, given the fact that, you know, they're making so many changes with day passes and as well as with single day tickets, you know, it might be a situation in which you question whether or not you want to just do a single day ticket based on how frequently you go.
Yeah, it does require you to do some math, especially if you're an out-of-state parks visitor like I am. It currently makes sense for me to get the annual pass just for the Run Disney experiences. So if I'm there 3 times a year, it at least evens out. If not, saves me a little bit of money rather than just booking day passes. But who knows? I don't know if that's going to remain the same for very much longer if they keep hiking up the APs. But we'll see.
For sure. Yeah. Interested to hear from our listeners here. Like, what's your plan of attack? Like, what's your Dave Ramsey strategy to financial success when it comes to getting your AP? So funny story about Dave Ramsey. This is an aside, completely.
Okay.
But so Dave Ramsey lives in Nashville, and it is notoriously known across Dave Ramsey that he's actually like a pretty toxic person. Have you heard about any of this?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, like openly carries guns around in his office and stuff. So like you might get financial freedom, but you're also going to be scared for your life a little bit. So that just, you know.
Oh my gosh.
I said what I said. So yeah, but wild. Anyhow, we might need to cut all of that out. That has nothing to do with anything that we've just talked about. But
Oh, I'm obsessed with that. We might need to get ADV Parker's fiance on our case because we might need some law.
We might need
advice
some
now.
law. Give us some law. Yeah, absolutely.
we need some legal advice after that libel comment.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, thank you for that. Serving up some hot goss here on Gaze to the D.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Ryan, I have to tell you, when I suggested that you and I relook at the movie Dumbo, I was like, oh, this will be just a cute, fun episode. There's so much to talk about. We have a lot to get through when we talk about Dumbo.
Yeah, Patrick, it was a lot. I'm not even going to lie. So
there's a lot to unpack.
There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to sit with. There's a lot that doesn't sit well with me, too. But, you know, I admittedly, when it comes to Dumbo, whenever you were like, let's revisit it, I thought to myself immediately, oh, I have to watch this again because I probably haven't watched Dumbo since I was 6 years old. This movie always scared me as a kid, and I also am afraid of heights, so the literal Dumbo ride at Disney World whenever I was a small child also scared me.
Fair.
So it just like, you know, I was always like, I'm good when it comes to Dumbo and his shenanigans. And now watching it as an adult, there's a lot in this movie that I never realized as a child, and I'm honestly surprised that my parents even let me watch it.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that history with Dumbo for you.
Yeah.
There's a lot, but Dumbo has sort of been in our lives though, right? For our entire lives, both you and I. Mm-hmm. Like it's just been part of the Disney vernacular and just even personal, but like everyone knows Dumbo. Somehow, right? I feel like it's just ever present if you are a Disney fan, you do know the movie Dumbo somehow. So yeah, it's got a really interesting history for me as well. I don't even remember watching it as a kid, but I do know that we like watch it in school because it's so short. It's not a really long movie, but it was just one of those that like, hey, let's just put on Dumbo if the teacher didn't have anything else on the lesson plan. They just threw that on because it's like an hour long, basically. But yeah, it's got a weird history too. Or should we just get into it with the history behind Dumbo, and then we'll talk about the movie itself and our feelings about it and all that?
Yes, and in addition to that, I am just utterly shocked that this movie is not PG-13.
Oh,
is that a weird observation?
No, I mean, listen, it is deeper than you think it is, and it's also sort of like emotionally traumatic as well. Yeah. The movie Dumbo. Oh, yeah. The themes in it are really heavy, but they try to make light of it in it being a circus story. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot to sit with. Let's jump before we jump into kind of like some of our thoughts, because that's my first thought, is that this movie should be PG-13.
Right.
Let's talk about the cast and crew. So the director, Samuel Armstrong, which was the writer and director of Fantasia, Bambi, and Snow White, all movies that I feel like do have approximately 15 minutes of the movie that things get weird, and all movies that have traumatic moments in them. So this makes sense. Norman Ferguson, director and production manager for Pinocchio and Snow White. And then Wilfred Jackson, who was the director for Cinderella, Snow White, and Alice in Wonderland. So we are talking about a room of directors that are all heavy hitters. Now, when it comes to the writers of Dumbo, Joe Grant, who was the writer for Fantasia and Alice in Wonderland, makes sense. Dick Humer, writer for Fantasia and Alice in Wonderland, and then Otto Englander, who was the writer for Snow White and Pinocchio. Once again, heavy hitters in the room all around. Yeah. Also movies that all get a little weird at some points. So that checks out. And then Frank Churchill did the music. And Frank Churchill also did the music for Snow White, Bambi, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Terrifying movie. And Peter Pan. I love that this is an extension of Spooks.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll jump into the cast now. So
Great.
Sterling Holloway was Mr. Stork. I have some thoughts. First thought that I had whenever I was watching this movie, I was like, oh my gosh, why does Mr. Stork's voice sound so hot? But, and Sterling Holloway is the voice of Winnie the Pooh, Kaa in the Jungle Book, the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland, and Roquefort in Aristocats, which is crazy that Sterling Holloway has voiced all of these people, because in my mind, each one of these characters sound completely and utterly different.
Yeah, I mean they've got like similar qualities, but he definitely has he has the market on weird characters, I feel like, and funny characters. Yeah.
Sterling, you are a magician.
Yes.
But anyhow, so let's talk about some other voices that we hear. So Edward Brophy, who is Timothy Q. Mouse, which is he was serving in this. He's in a million movies, but not much for Disney. He's most known for The Thin Man and It Happened on Fifth Avenue. I want to know what happened on Fifth Avenue.
So much happened.
Herming Bing was the ringmaster, and he is also in many movies, but not much for Disney. He's most known for The Great Waltz and Redheads on Parade. That sounds like a film.
I need to know.
Yeah. And then we have Verna Felton, who voices Elephant Matriarch. Whenever I was watching this and taking notes, I called them the Elephant Aunties. And she is Flora in Sleeping Beauty. She's also Aunt Sarah in Lady and the Tramp. She is the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland, and she's the fairy godmother in Cinderella. Verna.
Yeah. You better.
Verna.
You
got
better
checked.
do it.
Yeah.
You better do it. So what we didn't mention here are the voices of the crows, which I think we're going to put a pin in for a second, because I want to get into some background history of Dumbo so we can have a deeper conversation going forward when we talk about Dumbo. How does that sound?
We need to discuss, yes. That sounds great.
Let's do it. Okay, so Dumbo was the fifth Disney animated movie. It was based upon the storyline written by Helen Aberson, which is sort of a cute short story that Disney purchased and then made it into a movie. It was released on October 23rd, so this is the anniversary of Dumbo, in 1941. It was met with critical acclaim. So it was a pretty big success, Dumbo, because it was kind of a different movie for Disney in that it was very short. I think it clocks in at like 64 minutes or something. Yeah. And it was made on like a shoestring budget as well. So it was produced during World War II and also during an animator strike. So it had a lot going against it in that resources were very scarce at Disney, including a lot of animators. If you think about Bambi, where they really invested tons and tons of money and really changed the game for animation, they simplified it a lot for Dumbo because they knew it was going to be just sort of a whimsical movie. Then they didn't want to get way too deep with it because people were going through World War II at the time. So they just wanted to produce something that was just sort of lighthearted. Interestingly, it turned into a very controversial movie, however, that they didn't expect because at the time they just weren't thinking about sort of the things that they were animating, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
I personally think that it's so funny that they were like, everybody's going through World War II. Let's give people a break. And then they hit us with all of the trauma of child labor.
Very much that. So, despite World War II, Dumbo was one of the most financially successful Disney films of the 1940s and kind of all time when you think about it money-wise perspectively, right? So if you think about it, so the film cost $950,000 at the time, so just under $1 million to produce, which was a lot of money back then. But when you think about the budgets of Bambi, I mean, it was nothing, absolutely nothing for Disney. It was basically half the cost that they used to produce Snow White and less than a third of a cost that they spent on Pinocchio. And certainly it was much, much less expensive than Fantasia. And then Dumbo eventually grossed roughly more than $1.3 million during its original release. And it keeps increasing that because it's just been around for so long. It's just nothing but a gold mine for Disney now. Now, however, despite all of this, it's been widely criticized, obviously, and I think that we will as well, for some of the racial stereotyping of Black people. In fact, there's only one scene in which you actually see somebody who is of color, and they're basically working on the circus and singing correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but what felt like almost like like a slave spiritual at the time. I was like, this is uncomfortable. I don't like this at all. What was in your head when you were watching that film? Because for me, it was just like, this feels really wrong and gross.
Exactly that. Really wrong and gross.
Great.
I will say, as I was watching it, that I had a little fruity treat that sends you to another place of existence.
Okay. Fair enough.
If you pick up what I'm putting down.
Yes.
And I decided throughout the movie that I was going to write down my thoughts while I was existing on that other plane of existence.
Fantastic.
And so I have some very interesting commentary that takes us from beginning to the end of the movie.
Great.
It's not like excessively long. So if you don't mind, I'm going to read some of these thoughts.
Yes, please. Please and thank you. These are the thoughts of Ryan while enjoying something that you might call an edible at the time.
Yes, very that. Okay, so first of all, the opening here, it's been a long time since I've watched like an older movie. I miss long intros with fanfare. Like,
I don't disagree with you. Yeah.
I was living for the music and the long intros and the cards of front credits. And I was like, we need to I specifically wrote, bring back long intros with fanfare and a ton of names like Claude and Esther, which I feel like our generation of parents of childbearing people are definitely doing that. Like, I feel like every child I see, their name is like Ernest or something like that. So
Yes.
way to go. So the beginning narrator, whenever there was a storm, I legitimately was like, is this James Earl Jones? And then I realized that, like, probably not, but it did kind of sound like it.
Was not James Earl Jones.
I also loved that. I was like, do I remember this movie being scary as a child? And then we came out the gate at like 1 minute, 30 seconds with a terrifying thunderstorm. So yes, the movie is scary.
Yes.
My next note were storks are slay, fly mamas, which I still stand. The storks were a slay. And then also Dumbo lands in like Jupiter, Florida.
Yes.
And I was like, wait, hold up. Dumbo is a Floridian? Like, Dumbo was born here? Because Jupiter is not that far from Orlando. And I was like, is this like...
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. It was almost foreshadowing. I was like, that's really... Because Disney World was not a thought at this time at all. Disneyland was I don't even think Disneyland was a thought at this time. But yet they landed exactly where Disney World lives right now.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Do we know if Walt had already bought the land and just like hadn't said anything? He had not.
No, not at this time.
The irony here. But I thought that was weird, and I put that in all caps. And so, Dumbo has landed. We're meeting all of the different, all of the different animals that are on the train. Some of my thoughts. First of all, I would love to be reincarnated as a hippo. Specifically, I wrote down, it's giving Madagascar, she dumb thick, Your Honor, which I stand by that. The hippo in that movie was a serve. Something that I didn't remember, Patrick, the train is alive in this movie.
Yeah, isn't that weird? This whole movie is more whimsical than I remembered it being. Like, everything sort of had a personality to it, like the circus tent and the train and even the mountains and the trees were all sort of like animated to have character to them. And the Casey's train absolutely was alive in the was a character in the movie, which is weird.
Did not remember that, and I was like, oh wow, this is happening. Okay, so I'm gonna skip a couple of notes. I have lots of sleigh mamas, like the elephants talking because they were throwing shade left and right.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
This is where I noted that I didn't realize that Dumbo was a victim of child labor, and that shook me. I was like, wait, this little baby is working. He's having to like hammer things. I was like, where's HR?
Where's HR? Okay, but let's put a pin in that for a second. Not put a pin. Let's stay there for a little bit, because this is why I think it was so problematic with that the only depiction of black people in the movie was that they were working with animals, like as one. Like it was like, oh, this is horrific. This is not okay. I don't know. It was so culturally, I don't know, insensitive isn't even strong enough of a phrase to use. It was just flat out wrong.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you bring that up, because one of the notes that I skipped was, oh my gosh, are those supposed to be black people in all caps?
Right. Yeah.
So
it was.
There's that.
Yeah.
Didn't feel comfortable.
No, absolutely not. Not a safe space. Mm-mm.
Not a safe space, especially for my people.
Yes.
We'll talk about that a little bit more coming up.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
A couple of other notes that I made. Oh my gosh, whenever one of the auntie elephants spelled out Freak.
Oh my gosh.
The shade.
Yes. Horrifying.
The next things that I noted in this note was there was a section that got super the innuendos of it all. Like when Timothy Mouse screamed climax, I wrote down, Timothy Mouse, I don't know you like that. and then Timothy Mouse said, you're now getting that climax. And I said, oh, Timothy. And then Timothy said, who is your climax? And then I put in all caps, Timothy Austin Mouse, which there is not a Q in that.
Nope.
I felt like his middle name should have been Austin.
Great. And this is 45 minutes into your edible, so I can see where you're going with this.
When I tell you that this movie was only an hour, but this was the longest hour of my life. Because so many things happened, and I was like, this is crazy.
A lot.
And then there was fire, and then Dumbo was in drag, and then those clowns, I was like, these clowns are demons from the underworld. I rebuke them in the name of Jesus.
Oh, Lord.
It was so scary. And then I made note and I said, I'd like to know the email of Dumbo's HR department. We need to file some incidents. The elephant aunties also need to be put on a performance improvement plan. And I put PIP in parentheses. So for those who don't know, I work in HR, and obviously I had not clocked out while I was watching this movie.
Amazing.
Other notes that I put, this is the saddest movie I've ever watched in my 32 years of existence. I made a note. Wait, Dumbo, a child, is about to get drunk on workplace property. HR, dear Lord, someone call HR.
Oh, buddy.
Which brings me to my next point. This movie should have been PG-13.
Yeah, because of the alcohol consumption and the smoking, I think was,
The alcohol, the smoking, the child labor, the bullying, the physical violence, the fire, the depiction of people of color. Like, this movie should be PG-13.
Yeah.
And so this is where things took a turn for me.
Oh, they haven't already? Because currently they're a little off the track, and I'm obsessed with it.
Patrick, whenever the bubble demons,
the pink elephants,
whenever the pink elephants came out and they started singing in TTBB, for those who don't know, that's tenor ones and two and baritones and basses, I was like, oh, this is terrifying.
Yeah.
And they started doing all types of things that I was not mentally prepared for, including skiing. And I wrote, my manager, Ada, likes to ski, which she does.
Okay.
But that was a thought.
Oh, dear.
Dancing with lightning, weird. I'm overwhelmed. And then we get to the blackbirds.
We do. The crows. We do indeed.
You can call them crows, but immediately whenever they started talking, I was like, oh no, these are literal. Somebody said, we're going to make literal blackbirds. And whoever came up with that, I know that you most likely are no longer living and you're existing in the spiritual realm. I hope you can hear me. Shame on you.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there as well.
There's so much to unpack, including, I don't know, some of the phrases that were used.
Yeah.
That like the crows like looked poor. And then also like this moment of voodoo with the magic feather.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a problem.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts about the crows. Let's
sure.
take a second and park about the crows.
Well, first we have to thank you for this segment called Ryan Takes an Edible and describes the movie for us. So thank
if you would like for this to be a recurring section every time that I'm on an episode, feel free to let me know.
Yeah, you may have to live tweet it next time as well.
I may have to live tweet it. And also, in retrospect, I realized the notes that I just gave are literally everywhere. So, Patrick, feel free to edit what does not make sense.
Nope. None of it made sense, and that's why we're keeping all of it. So, there we go.
Perfect.
No, you're not wrong. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about the crows for a second, and then we can jump back into just the weirdness that is this movie. So, let me give you, and by you, I mean our listeners, some historical context to the crows and who actually did voice them, because it's actually a really interesting story, and it may make us change our minds slightly. So,
okay.
So the big song is The Crows as well. And I'm just saying The Crows because that's how they're referenced in the movie, and that's what they're titled basically is The Crows. But they sing When I See an Elephant Fly. Now this song is probably the most popular song from Dumbo, and it was performed by the Hall Johnson Choir, which was started by Francis Hall Johnson. Now, Francis Hall Johnson has an incredible story. He is a prolific instrumentalist and choir director. I recommend everybody look him up. So he started at a very young age playing the violin and the viola, and he later became interested in choral music. He formed what was then called the Hall Johnson Negro Choir in 1925, which now is just referenced as the Hall Johnson Choir for obvious reasons. So
yes.
They became incredibly popular and participated in Broadway shows, national tours, international tours. And think about this. This is in the 1930s and 40s, and this is a choir made up of all black men, and they are world renowned. So much so that Disney took note of them and put them in a couple of movies. Actually, you can hear them singing in the background in Snow White, and of course, they sang the song When I See an Elephant Fly in Dumbo. And Hall Johnson himself and a few other members of his choir provided not only the singing voices, but the speaking voices of quite a few of the crows. So you do actually hear them, and they are represented. The only other actor, here's where it becomes more problematic, however, was voiced by a white man named Cliff Edwards, who, of course, was the major speaking role for all of the crows. So that's just a little bit of background about this scene and who actually voiced them and who came up with the personalities, was the Hall Johnson Choir with Francis Hall Johnson. So thoughts on all of that, Ryan? Now putting it into context of the movie and seeing it and now knowing this information, does that change anything, or does it still... tell me your thoughts on that.
So that definitely is good to know. I'm really glad that Francis Hall Johnson was able to be prestigious, especially in his time, and also break a lot of barriers down, especially when you think about the time and how black people, we weren't allowed in a lot of the spaces, I'm sure, that Francis Hall Johnson was performing in, right? So I love this.
Absolutely.
Now, I do have some thoughts, though, because this just goes to show, and I don't think a lot of people recognize it to today. It just goes to show that black culture has always been used as a source of entertainment for non-black people. Mm-hmm. And so much so that this is still going on to this day. It's just simply been relabeled as internet language. People claim and say have you seen this new internet trend? Or, oh, this is so funny. And even, I'm going to say something very controversial yet brave. Even in the queer community, there are a lot of phrases and a lot of speaking intonations that people say, oh, this is queer culture. It is not, hunty. As an example, that's black culture, babes.
Yeah.
So this is just very interesting to me and a really great lesson and a really great jump back into reality
Yes.
is that a lot of the entertainment industry views oftentimes Black people as comic relief or Black culture as a source of like lighthearted entertainment for everyone else.
Yes.
When in fact that is still our culture, and it is not meant to be put down or used for entertainment purposes for other people. So those are my thoughts.
Yes.
I know that I just got very serious just now instead of talking about the edibles.
This is
but
this is why
so
we're
I
having
hope
the
that just makes a reminder to everybody,
Yeah, because I mean the reality is though they did use Black actors and performers for this part, they were still used in a very minstrel kind of way. If you and so I don't know. It's I don't even know if I have the words or the tools to describe it, but like you brought this up, and contextually, like if you think about it, it's very likely that these performers, the Hall Johnson Choir, were maybe not allowed in some of the movie theaters that were showing Dumbo, at the time.
100%. Even
though they were a huge part of the movie. And so when you think about all that stuff, and that they were used for a very like entertainment purposes and in a very minstrel way, which is not okay, was not okay, will never be okay. So yeah, it's a lot to think about, and it's a lot to unpack when you think about a 64-minute movie about a flying elephant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just
it's a lot to unpack. Something else that I want to mention is that I've recently been doing a lot of learning around specifically this time in American history when, outside of like animation wise, back in this time, this was like the time of inventions, right? There was people inventing things left and right that we still use to this day. And a lot of those inventions actually came from Black people. But at this time, Black people were not allowed to receive patents or to receive accreditation for the inventions that they came up with.
Yeah.
So for a great example, did you know that the turn signal was invented by a Black man?
I did not know that. Wow.
Yes, the turn signal was invented by a Black man. I can't remember his name right now, but he never, ever got credit for his invention because at the time that he invented it, Black people weren't allowed to have patents. And so an automotive company, I think, gave him a very, very small amount of money for his invention. And then the automotive company took credit for the invention of the turn signal. So just things like that we will never know truly all of the significant impact that Black people made during this time in history. And that goes to show with the Hall Johnson Choir and with the one actor who had the biggest speaking role for the Crows that was depicting a Black character was actually a white person.
Yeah.
And it also makes me wonder if the Hall Johnson Choir or Francis Hall Johnson truly are accredited for the movie in all the ways that they should have been.
They were not, and they are not to this day. I had to do quite a bit of digging to really find this story about Francis Hall Johnson, because I think most of the Crows are just credited as collectively as the Hall Johnson Choir, as opposed to individual accreditation with their singular names. And so, yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem, Ryan.
It's a problem. So not only is this movie terrifying AF, it's also racist. So
I know. So let's talk about that a little bit too, because let's expand on that. Because as I said earlier, like Dumbo, you can't not know Dumbo when you go to a Disney park. And like Dumbo, the ride is in every single Disney park around the world. Basically, Storybook Circus is basically a big homage to the circus in Dumbo. Like it's widely celebrated in Disney and yet not talked about in how problematic these depictions are. And so I don't know. I don't yet know how I unpack that and how I feel about that. Where are you with this?
So I'm going to say something, and this is coming from someone who is Black. I think that I really enjoyed the statement that was made on the screen at the very beginning of Dumbo. where it talks about like blatantly there are depictions of cultures that are not appropriate in this movie. We leave this movie available for streaming for educational purposes for people to know that this is the way that it was and this is what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
I do agree with that. But now after having watched this movie, I do not believe that there should be a storybook circus. I think just like how they've done with Sounds of the South or whatever that Splash Mountain is themed off of. I've never watched the movie before because I know exactly how it depicts Black people and how they've reclaimed Splash Mountain with, the Tiana ride. I think that we should do the same with Dumbo. I don't think that it should be like a big section of any Disney park because of the way that it depicts people. And I'm going to say something else. Peter Pan should be the same way. And I know people love Peter Pan, but I just think at this point in history and at this point where we're recognizing and righting our wrongs, I know that a lot of things have sentimental value tied to them. But I think if it poorly depicts a whole entire group of people, then it should not be displayed in a park.
I don't disagree with you. And I know that they tried to, I don't know what the word is, just try to make up for it, like with the live action version of Dumbo, which turned out to be, in my opinion, a really bad movie. But they righted some of those wrongs with the remake of Dumbo. I don't know that you can, maybe that's not even the right term, like righting the wrongs. They just tried to shift it and go, this is the story we should have told instead. And they did the same with Peter Pan in the movie Peter Pan and Wendy.
Yes, they did a great job reclaiming that with Peter Pan and Wendy.
I agree. And so I think that, I think you're right. I think some of these rides need to either be removed or at least updated to sort of make up for it, or to change it, or to say we see our wrongs and we want to make it right and better and more equitable. So I don't disagree with you. Yeah, hard to know how to fix all of that. So I will say though about the movie Dumbo, like we can't put any of that aside because it's just there. It is what it is, and it's not erasable, obviously. I will say, interestingly, the character Dumbo himself has a story that I think a lot of us can relate to, right? Of being othered and being bullied and being ostracized, being told that you're not even one of us anymore. It's just that part of the story. I think we can highlight and go, wow, what a deep, what a deep story that they told with this character, and how allyship comes through with Timothy Q. Mouse, and even the Crows themselves, like, recognized the story and were very sentimental and empathetic toward Dumbo and helped him along his journey. And so, yeah, allyship was a big thing that I wrote down of, that's an interesting story for 1941 that they served to us, that as a kid you don't ever pick up on that, but when I watch it I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize like how much trauma Dumbo was put under, being othered.
Dumbo, and he did all of this while his mom was in jail. Wild. I will say, I wondered at the end of the movie, I was like, wait, when did Dumbo's mom get released? Is she on parole? Like, I did have some questions around that.
Yeah.
But
it does wrap up very quickly. The movie wraps up so quickly.
One of my edible notes says, I can't believe this movie has had all of this happen and it's only an hour long. In all caps, the trauma.
The trauma of it all.
And also, one of my final notes was, and I know that I just said that they need to take Dumbo out the parks, and I do stand with that. Yeah. But I will say, before they do, since Dumbo knows all of these insane tricks immediately after he learns how to fly, my note says, if he knows how to do all of this, there should be a Rock and Roller Coaster X Dumbo crossover.
I am obsessed with that. That's a really good change for it. Yeah, I think the ride itself I'm okay with, but I think Storybook Circus needs to go away and be something else, because circuses in general can be pretty problematic. But the Dumbo ride itself I'm fine with, but I'm obsessed with that idea of making Dumbo the Flying Elephant the new Rock and Roller Coaster. I think that's amazing.
Isn't that hilarious?
I love that.
Now, with that said, I don't think that Dumbo should be the new Rock and Roller Coaster. If anything, I think it would be fun if they made it a little bit more if they made it a little bit more, not generic, but evergreen, to where they got to switch out the recording artist like every 5 to 10 years. Or something like that.
Sure.
Or if it was a situation like Guardians, where you get a different song every time you write it, I think that would be cool.
That would be an easy fix for it, yeah.
Anyhow, back to Dumbo.
Back to Dumbo.
my overall general thoughts, this movie is a wild ride, especially if you've taken an edible.
Yes,
I do not recommend to watch it. If you are a brown person, do not watch this movie. It can be particularly triggering, especially if you have experienced a lot of microaggressions in your life. But I am glad that I watched it, because I will say one positive is that we've come so far, truly. We have come so far in the conversations that we're now having about representation in Hollywood. We still have so much further to go. And I know that sometimes it can get really discouraging and really scary, especially in our current political climate. But to give us motivation to keep on this journey, we really do need to realize how far we've come as a society as well in the 1940s, and especially 1940s, which is crazy because, this is the time of a lot of our grandparents being in a very impressionable age. And for some of us, this was even some of our parents were directly born during this time. Yeah. And this was like their movie as a child. So it really just goes to show that, this was only 1 to 2 generations before our existing generation, and we've made so much progress in a very short amount of historical time.
Yeah, I agree. Everything you said, I don't need to say any more than that. Other than I would say this movie is a really good example of how we always say on the show, like, representation matters, but also on the flip side of that, misrepresentation also matters, and it is detrimental. So just because you do have people of color in the movie doesn't mean it was done correctly and it was harmful. It's a misrepresentation is harmful to people. So yeah, Dumbo needs, I don't know what to do with it. I'm sure some of our tweedles have some thoughts about this too, but before we get into that, where would you put it then, given all of that, given all of the historical context behind it, given the fact that Dumbo himself is, I don't know, would you put Dumbo in the ranking of a minority character?
I would label Dumbo as a minority character. I felt like there was lots of semblances of Dumbo being other in a lot of different ways. Yeah. And I also found it very interesting that Dumbo doesn't have a dad in the movie. And I feel as though that there might be some hintings, because I know, just given the cultural time of the 1940s, if you didn't have like a 2-parent household, things like that, you were viewed as other. And that was like another social area that was kind of, what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm trying to make sure that I'm being as sensitive as possible. You were just viewed as other during that time. And so Absolutely. I do think that Dumbo is depicted as a minority on several different levels. And for that, I do think that is a positive, that they were teaching children to be accepting of people that are different than them. I will give them that.
I agree. So given that, then where would you put this if we're doing our ratings now on the inclusivity scale? Where would you put Dumbo, the movie?
Like from a 1 to 5, I would maybe put it at a -4. Oh, wow. But but that is to today's standards. I think probably within context of the 1940s, I would say, given the context of the 1940s and what was going on then, definitely like a 4 or 5, right? But not to today's standards by any means. What do you think?
No, today's standards. Yeah, I agree. Today's standards, harmful. Other than the fact that like Dumbo himself is maybe misrepresented or is a minority, I could maybe see giving it a 1, I guess. Yeah. But because of all of the misrepresentation of Black people in this movie, a negative 1,000. Like horrific. So, what about
100%
LGBTQ plus significance in history? Where would you put this movie?
There, especially given the context of when the movie came out, there's a lot of queer coding in this movie. I feel like the stork himself is very queer coded. I feel like Dumbo is definitely queer coded. and the aunties are serving camp and shade. I
Yes.
think at one point in my notes, for our RuPaul's Drag Race fans, I wrote in all caps, "I call shade," the Trinity the Tuck voice.
Yes.
Like, I call shade.
Yes.
And so I'm going to say a 5 on LGBTQ significance.
Yeah, I actually kind of agree with that. Even though it's not like blatantly queer, like the pink elephants are very like dramatic and whimsical, and I feel like they were on some sort of a poppers or something. I don't know.
Yes,
and Dumbo being othered and ostracized, even by his own race, basically. Like, I mean, you can pull a lot out of that, and Timothy Q. Mouse helping him out. Yeah, I think I would definitely say it's significant to the LGBTQ plus community in very interesting ways, though. You know, it's a tumultuous movie. This Dumbo
that is the best way to describe it. It is tumultuous.
Yes.
So with that said, what's your overall rating?
It's so hard. Going back, I used to think that Dumbo was such a great movie. It's a Disney classic, all this stuff, but now it's hard. I think it's a 1 for me on Dumbo because the character Dumbo himself and Timothy are delightful characters. If you can remove them from the movie and put them in a different movie and make it better, it would be fantastic. So I give it a 1 simply for the character Dumbo and the beautiful moment in Baby Mine when he's being held by his mother.
Yes.
Like, you can't erase that from your heart. It's such a touching moment in such a tumultuous movie. So I give it a 1, Dumbo. What about you?
Yes. I hated it. but
That's
with
fair.
That said,
I mean,
that
that's
is due to
fair.
that is due to my intersection of my identity.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I found myself being enraged but laughing because of how far out there this movie is. So I'm also going to give it a 1. I agree with you of like Timothy Mouse is so cute and Dumbo is so cute and the baby mine scene is adorable.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I think that we need a... I think that they should do another reboot, make it animated. Like you said, give Timothy Mouse and Dumbo another chance to be in a completely different story. And then we put the original version to bed and we never speak about it ever.
Yes. Absolutely that. I agree with you. I think it deserves a better reboot, I think, Dumbo.
Yes.
Because it can be such like the whole bullying storyline, it can be a really powerful movie if you do it correctly. And they just didn't handle it correctly. So
Yes. And I don't think that any child should watch this movie. Like I said, that this movie should have been PG-13.
Yeah, I don't think it's important that a kid watches Dumbo.
No, absolutely not.
Agreed. Well, Tweedles, I'm sure this is going to spark some discussion amongst our Tweedles, and we want to know your thoughts on Dumbo and how it fits into Disney history, what it should look like going forward, how it made you feel. Let us know. Let us know your thoughts. We want to know all about it. You can hit us up on the Instagram at GDTD Podcast, or you can send us a voice memo or an email at info@gazetothed.com. Now, Ryan, you were telling me you were having some certain thoughts about Sterling Holloway and the Stork.
Yes.
Do you want to go into that more? You had like a little reaction to his voice.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was like, who is the stork?
And then when I told you it was Winnie the Pooh, you were like, no, ma'am.
Yeah, I was like, who is the stork? I was like, is he still alive?
Oh, storks and bears. That's what you're into. I love it.
Yes, storks and bears. Storks and bears. Patrick, now,
Yes, Ryan.
I know that we have really dived in, right? We have talked about a lot. And I feel like maybe some of our listeners are like, wow, I have to sit in existential crisis right now about this movie. So let's end it on some quick D.
I'm obsessed with that. Absolutely. I think we need to turn this elephant around in a different direction.
The elephant in the room. Let's get rid of it.
Ooh, Dumbo is literally the elephant in the room when it comes to Disney.
Dumbo is the elephant in the room. I wonder if that was like, whenever they have like projects that they can't reveal what it actually is, so the secret doesn't get out. I wonder if the remake was called The Elephant in the Room before people
the
actually
elephant in the room. Mm-hmm.
That's funny. Okay. Anyway,
and now the remake is The Elephant in the Room for a very different reason, because it's a horrible movie.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
I had no interest, and so I want to hear a take 2 one day of the Dumbo remake. Do we do
Never.
a take 2?
I will not be on that episode.
Okay, cool. All right, Slay. Let's do it. Quick G.
Let's do it. We have pulsed our community, Ryan, and we have a quick D question from the Disney Parks teacher. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it. Disney Park teacher Jeff, give it to us.
Give it to us. This is right up your alley. For this, it is remake a Disney animated feature into a horror film for Halloween.
Oh, wow.
What
I
would
am
be a
gonna
good horror film?
A good horror film as a remake. You know what? This was a horror movie for me as a child. The Nightmare Before Christmas used to scare me to the point where I visibly couldn't even see the VHS as a kid. Like, my parents had to put it completely away. So I'm going to say we're going to actually make that into a horror movie. It borderline already is, but we're going to full-fledged go into it.
Just go deeper into it. How would you turn it into a nowhere near a comedy, but only a horror movie? What would you do?
I think some kids are going to have to die.
Straight up child murder. Great.
I think so, because okay, so the movie that was particularly traumatic for me as a kid, right, was the scene where she unboxes the rubber duck, and the rubber duck has those scary teeth and then chases the little girl up the stairs.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I had nightmares about that for days. And looking back on this, actually, this should have been a sign to my parents that their child had generalized anxiety disorder, 100%. But I think that duck was actually a murderous duck, and it was taking out some people. I think probably, what's her name? Alice? Alice, right?
Alice? Who?
Sally, sorry.
What are you talking about? Alice in Wonderland?
Sally probably gets is the edible still kicked in? I don't even know.
I was
Sally
are you
probably gets experimented on yeah, and the mayor, you can't tell me that mayor hasn't done some crazy things in the city. So I think that's how we make it into a horror movie. Okay, I'm switching it over to you, Patrick.
Fair enough.
What do you think?
Fair enough. I just want you to know that the pull quote for this episode will be, Ryan says some kids are going to have to die. That's what we're letting people know.
I think some kids are going to
have to die. Yeah. I've said that many times for many different reasons.
So bleak. That's so bleak.
Let's see. I love it. I'm obsessed with that. And I mean, I don't know. Dumbo for me already is a horror movie, so maybe we don't have to remake Dumbo and just label it as a horror movie instead of a Disney classic. It's horrific, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. It is horrific. Yeah, I agree with you. The clowns were so scary. How are you going to up the ante in Dumbo to make it that much more horrific, into a true horror movie?
Great question. You know who this is a job for is our director, Mr. Peel. I think might have to take on Dumbo and remake it.
Genius.
Can you imagine what he would do with it? He would take that and tear Disney apart with it, I bet.
He sure would. Now, I don't know if the rights expire to Dumbo at any point. Did you ever hear about when they remade that Winnie the Pooh horror movie? I haven't watched it. I don't want to watch it. It looks terrible.
No.
But if the rights to Dumbo ever expire, Jordan Peele does need to scoop it up, because that would be outrageous.
Agreed. And again, the catchphrase will be, some kids are going to have to die.
Some kids are going to have to die. Sorry to tell you. Alrighty, y'all, that will do it for this episode of Gays Do the D. Thanks for listening. To become a patron of the podcast, visit our website at gaysdothed.com/donate. For a donation of any amount, you can receive exclusive Gays Do the D content and help us to continue to bring you the very best Disney news and discussion. Continue the conversation after this episode on Facebook and Instagram at GDTD Podcast. Also, submit your questions or show ideas to info@gaysdothed.com. Have a great week, everyone, and see you real soon. I think some kids are going to have to die.